So, welcome to the second showing of AAUW Conversation and Connection. That's a long verbiage, so we might just call it Conversation. I am Sharon Watson Hamilton. I'm one of the members of our local American Association of University Women, Auburn, California. I want to thank Phil at Auburn Community TV and Susan Rushton, who kind of first got this on our drawing board as a way to communicate and get our message out to via YouTube, Facebook, just another way to get our name known. What is AAUW? We are a nonprofit. We are a, let me read our mission statement. It says it better than I can say it. Our mission statement is AAUW advances equity for women and girls through advocacy, education, philanthropy, and research. Now, that's limiting, and that's going to segue into our conversation today. We're not just girls and women now. Anyone can join our organization. We do still define ourselves as university women. However, we've opened that up to 2-year degrees, and we are entertaining even opening it up to vocational people in the future. So, don't be off-put by that, be put on by our message. Okay, and we decided to do this as another way to get out to the community throughout Auburn. You may know us through Trivia Bee. We've done that several years. Chocolate tasting we did with collaboration of Old Town Auburn for many years. And most recently we did have a scavenger hunt in Old Town, downtown Auburn for us. Those were all fundraisers, but they are ways that we work with the community. We care about our community, and we want our voice heard, and we want to hear theirs. So those are just reasons that we are here talking with you today. I have a couple corrections from the last show. I think I mentioned that the general elections were leap year. That's not accurate. The presidential elections are every 4 years, and they are leap years. The general election can be every 2 years. Wanted to clarify that. Wasn't a whole thing, but anyway. And then on the tribal gaming, which is past us now because we are taping this after the election, but I think we were talking about that they were funded, and I believe they are not regulated by the government. So gaming on tribal lands is not regulated by the government as I know it. Those I just wanted to correct. And then, so we talk a little bit about acronyms, and I have a new one for you today. And this is truly an acronym. AAUW is not. That's an initial that you know something by. An acronym is an actual word that comes out of initials. And so the word for today, acronym, is COVID. So do we all know what COVID means? It stands for Coronavirus Disease 2019. That's how we get COVID-19. Anyway, so that's your little trivia part. The other trivia part, we are taping this on the 10th of November. Tomorrow is the Veterans Day holiday. And just to give you a little history review, which I always found fascinating because it was my grandpa's birthday. But it was the end of World War I, and it was the 11th day, the 11th month, and the 11th hour that the armistice was signed. So, and I believe that was 2018, I didn't look that up, so don't hold me to that, but I think it's 2018.
1918.
19, okay. 19, oh, did I say 2000? That's not going to work. 1918. But anyway, that was the end of World War I. That was to end all wars, and that's how we get Veterans Day and they stop at the clock tower here in Auburn in the parade at the 11th hour. So that's where that comes in, 11, 11, 11. Anyway, just for fun, so your history lesson. Thank you for the year update. Oh my goodness. Anyway, we are going to talk today. My guest is Daniela Zimmerman. She is an AAUW member, and we have a really kind of intriguing and important topic today. It's, let me get my verbiage correct here, Daniela, because I wrote it all out so clearly. it's about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Danielle is involved. She's one of the co-chairs of that committee. The other committee member is Julianne Brown, and she couldn't make it today, but she did write us a few notes, so we might back and forth. Anyway, Daniela, welcome.
Glad to be here.
I'm going to start with, can you tell us a little bit about your background getting into AAUW? We'll start with that.
Sure. Well, let's see. In terms of like my educational background.
Yeah, or how you got involved in AAUW.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah.
Sure. So we moved to Auburn in '94, and I had 2 little children, and I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
So another attorney that had worked with my husband mentioned AAUW as a place to meet really interesting people, and so I went to a mixer for people that were interested, and
nice.
I met Ann Hobbs and Deanna Hogue.
Yeah.
And so I joined and got involved, and Deanna was really good at getting people to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
There was an event coming up. I'm trying to remember what it was, but anyway, she asked if I wanted to help, and I was like, yes, we'll get away from the child care situation at home.
Right.
Not that I don't love my children, but you need to have that adult time. So and so over the years, I've sometimes been more involved, been an officer, other times less involved. These days, I haven't been as involved with AAUW because I'm involved with some other things that we'll be talking about today.
Right, and you can go right into that. So, because your passion is diversity and inclusion and equity, all those things, and I've got some good definitions that we can back and forth. But in fact, maybe we should start with that. They're pretty important terms to be defined.
Mm-hmm.
So we are having a meeting, I should say, also next Monday the 14th. Now, this may not get out in time, but Danielle is in charge of that meeting. And here's what she wrote in our newsletter. The meeting will show how AAUW members can be empowered to create a space where members can come together and celebrate their differences. I just think that's so beautifully put, Danielle. It just really kind of says the focus of, because people, I for one, I get a little confused about some of the diversity, some of the terms. We'll talk about that in a few minutes too. But I thought that was such a beautifully put way to say, hey, we want to include everybody. We want to care about everybody. We want to respect and be kind to everybody.
Right.
And I think that those things are so important, and that was so well put. So, shall we just start in?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get involved, or would you rather go into definitions? I'll let you pick.
Oh, well, I can talk about how I got involved, and then we can segue into definitions. So I found myself on the journey as a parent and of having a child come out to us when they were 20. And so, coming out as transgender. So, had to, learn a lot. And I know a lot of young people's parents struggle to the point where they are rejecting their children, and that was not going to happen in my house.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, no, I don't understand exactly what this is about, but this train is not leaving the station without me, is kind of how I describe it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and up until that time, I had lots of friends and family members in the LGBT community as well, but I've now become an active ally, and I've learned a lot. I've met a lot of wonderful people. And so that's sort of how I've gotten involved with the work that I do now, volunteer work that I do now.
And who are you with now, primarily?
So
not only AAUW, but
right. I'm on the board of PFLAG Greater Placer County. I'm on the board of the Placer LGBTQ Plus Center, which is not existing in the flesh just yet, but it will. And I'm also on the planning committee for Placer Pride, and I'm one of the adult co-coordinators of the Landing Spot, which is a support group for LGBTQ teens in Placer County.
Wow.
So a lot.
Yeah, really a lot. And
A
you know,
lot.
I have to say, one of the struggles I think in any of those organizations, we aren't that a diverse county.
Right, exactly.
And so to become diverse is a little challenging when the population doesn't really support. How do I want to say that? I'm naively putting it, but if we don't have a huge population of
Right.
that, where is the interest and the love going to come from, right?
Right.
So parents are obviously the number one choice, I would think.
In terms of getting folks to join our organization,
Or you know, just
Or
to
any
support the whole concept of equality and
Right.
yeah.
So, well, for example, PFLAG is a national organization that was started back in the 70s by a mom who decided she was going to be openly supportive of her gay son. And so she founded PFLAG, excuse me. And since then, it has become an organization that has chapters throughout the country, and I think there are even some international chapters.
Okay.
And the goal is to provide support, education, advocacy for family members and friends, but also for the LGBT population and, you know, our family, our friends, our neighbors, our co-workers. So in our branch, which has been around for about 12 years, we're about 50% allies, 50% folks that identify on the LGBTQ plus spectrum. And a plus is for inclusivity.
Yes, yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to have a very, very long, stream of letters.
I have to
And-
laugh because I did Google that and I go, oh my goodness, there's like
Yeah.
18 things that follow that, right?
At least, at
So,
least.
yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing because as we move forward in time and folks are becoming less restricted to certain boxes that they need to fit into. And so they're able to be more authentic and live authentic lives and more, depending on where they live and all of that, more openly than in the past.
Right. It's still a hard concept. I'm going
Right.
to pay, not devil's advocate because I'm not totally
no.
on that side, but it's a little hard to understand sometimes.
Sure.
The LBGTQ just doesn't plus
Right.
now doesn't just trickle off sometimes. I get it all mixed up sometimes. I know what it is. I support it, but the other thing for me, and this is just really a personal thought. I kind of don't understand why we have to make a thing of all of it.
Right.
I'm sorry. That's a tough question, and I'm throwing that at you.
Sure.
And I don't think I'm the only one out there, but it seems like, well, why do I have to even know that about that person?
Sure.
Can I
Sure.
just like them for who they are and a person, right?
Well, I mean, perhaps in an ideal world or in the future, right? It won't matter, but it does matter. People are discriminated against. People have to live secret lives.
Yeah.
People and because they have to do that, it can lead to mental health issues, trauma issues, suicide, a lot of suicide.
Yeah.
And also, we are in the middle of Transgender Awareness Month.
Yes.
And on the 20th is Transgender Day of Remembrance. And so in Sacramento, there's a large gathering, and I just found out there's going to be one up in Nevada City, Grass Valley area, where we come together to acknowledge the, it seems like it's more every year, number of transgender men and women, mostly women of color, that have been murdered that year
Oh.
throughout the country. And I think we're, as a society, at a point where we're really kind of looking at this whole question of gender.
Right.
Right? But to tie it back to diversity, inclusion, and equity, and for example, with AAUW or other organizations that are wanting to be more, inclusive and welcoming and don't know how to do that, especially where we live,
Right.
right? It's not easy. Even PFLAG has, our board is, pretty much, white folks who are either cis LGBT people or cis straight people, such as myself. Cis means you identify with the gender you were assigned at birth.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm a cis white heterosexual woman.
Right.
Yeah. And that's how I identify.
Okay.
Right. So how do you then diversify your board so that you can get more ideas, more, the old saying, two heads are better than one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it kind of goes to that when that term celebrate diversity, right? Why do we celebrate diversity? Not just because, we get to eat different food or, we get to have fun.
But that's a good part of it.
Or,
Yeah.
But we celebrate diversity because the more different perspectives that come to the table or that come to bear on solving a certain challenge, the better results you can get, right? Because you have other ways of looking at things.
I almost want to call it, instead of diversity, and again, I'm kind of looking at our environment here in Auburn and Placer County, and it's almost like I want it to say understanding. Let's just understand one another.
That's a big part of it.
It is part of the definition,
Yeah.
but it seems like that almost seems a broader word, and that maybe could be used a little more often rather than diversity. Maybe people, I don't think people are that way, but I suppose they are, could be turned off by that. But
That's possible.
it's possible. But
and Auburn is fairly homogenous, right?
yeah,
However, it's more diverse than a lot of people might think.
I'm sure that is
And it
accurate.
depends on, the circles you move in.
Right.
Right? And who you hang out with. And sometimes we have to challenge ourselves, right, to go hang out in a different circle,
Yeah.
right? My friend Diana Madoshi, who lives in Rockland, who I've known for many years. She's African American, and I know her from Women Democrats. But I went with her down to South Sacramento one time for an event where there were some speakers, and I'm trying to remember what the topic was, but it was like an annual event. And I was the only white person in the room. And I had to, I kind of took the time to imagine what if I was only person of color in an all-white room. How does that feel?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just, I kept my mouth shut and I just listened and learned.
Yeah,
and everyone was very friendly, and they didn't treat me any differently. So that was,
Well, I think
something that I don't do every day.
right.
But that's partly a function of where I live, because that's all the way down in South Sacramento.
Correct.
Now, in my teaching in South County, Roseville, Rockland area, there is some more diversity, but
Right.
it is still not as diverse as, say, Sacramento or
yeah.
another, an urban area, metropolitan area.
Right.
Yeah.
I think anything that we do for the first time is a little bit uncomfortable.
That's true.
And so when it's a really important issue of equity, we'll say, then it even resonates a little stronger, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did you want me to kind of talk about the difference
I
between diversity,
do.
inclusivity, and equity?
Yes, I'm going to throw these. These are from
Okay.
Jewel Ann, the other gal, and I'm going to define her verbiage, not mine, and you can kind of correct it or broaden it. Diversity
fine.
refers to all aspects of human difference, social identities, and social group differences, including but not limited to race, ethnicity, creed, color, sex, gender, gender identity, socioeconomic status, language, that one I liked, cultural, national origin, religion, spirituality, age, disability, military, veteran, political perspective, and associational preferences. Wow, that's a lot. You know, I had it down to like 3 to start with. And then her last sentence about that, but it's not just about our differences. It means we accept, value, and respect those differences. Again, a powerful statement. Anything you'd add to that?
Well, I'm glad she included people with disabilities, because that is another big area of that we need to work on with being inclusive
Yeah.
of folks.
Yeah.
And I will also say that despite, or in addition to people having, differences, most of who we are as human beings, we have in common with any other human being.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding.
that's I think a really important point to remember.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that we're a melting pot, I mean, we have not forgotten that. That is our country's, we are a melting pot. And so that's going to bring in all of those things. So, okay, let's go to equity. Again, this is Julianne's words. Oh boy, what misunderstood and maligned word these days. It is important to say what it is not. It is not the same as equality.
True.
Equality means everyone gets the same access to or amount of something. Equity, by contrast, is about everyone having equal access to what they need to be successful. Being equitable means acknowledging and addressing structural inequities, both historic and current, that advantage some and disadvantage others. Equal treatment results in equity only if everyone starts with equal access to opportunities. That's a handful.
It is.
And I thought it was going to be a simple definition.
Well, one of my favorite images for inclusivity, or sorry, for equity, is let's say there's a fence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very tall person. They can see right over the fence, and they can see that, maybe there's a tree with some really good looking apples over there, right?
Right?
Maybe someone who's shorter can't see over the fence. So they don't even know the apples are there, let alone have access to
But
them.
lo, they can both go steal them. No, that's not, okay.
So then if we, provide something for that person to stand on where they can see over the fence and know that those apples are there, right? Then they're it's not equal, right? Because one person's still taller than the other.
Right.
But we've given that person better access to see what's over the fence.
Yes.
So that's one way to look at it. And when I was teaching, I talked with students about, that we all have different places where we start on the starting line in life, right?
Right.
So, if the goal is to, live the American dream, let's say that's the goal, and that it's over there. Some of us start here.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us get to start up there.
Right.
And some people have to start way back there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we make things more equitable? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that everyone has access to a good education.
Right.
Right? Which is very important to AAUW.
Right. Right.
So
Yes.
it's kind of a big part of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that everyone has access to a good education, make sure that the folks in the back, they might be getting a good education, but if when they go to apply for a job, there's discrimination based on their last name, based on how they look, how they sound, whether their name matches how they look, all of those things, then that's still not equity, right? we've given them some of the tools, but we need to make sure that people are aware that maybe they're unconscious biases.
Right. Right.
You know, some people it's a conscious bias, but for most of us it's an unconscious bias, right? That when, you know, looking through a stack of applicants, you know, you're maybe gonna like, oh, I can't pronounce that name. Okay. You know, and that's not being equitable, right? So I don't know if that example helps.
Well, it does. It's a little tougher because a lot of us want to say, "Hey, pull yourself up by the bootstraps," kind of the old antiquated thinking. I know, you know, and some of us want to say, "Hey, yeah, my journey wasn't easy. If I can do it, anybody can do it." But that's not always true, and so we just have to be aware of that. And I think access really is a great word right in there. So far I've changed diversity to understanding and equity to access. So, okay, stay with me. Let's go to inclusion. Okay, here's again Julianne Brown's verbiage. Inclusion refers to a community in which all members feel welcomed, respected, have a sense of belonging, and can participate and achieve their potential. It is possible to have a diverse population, yet not provide an inclusive environment. It is human nature to desire to be understood, accepted, and valued. True inclusivity satisfies those basic emotional needs. Anything you'd want to add to that? That's, again, a very powerful word.
It is, and it's in the news a lot because, you know, as some school districts have moved to, because the state actually requires it, have curriculum be more inclusive.
Right.
So that any student in your classroom can see themselves in the curriculum materials. For example, we know with AAUW that when young girls see women scientists, right? When they go to science camp or Trek science camp, it gives them ideas about, oh yeah, well, if she's a scientist and I know I love science, I could be a scientist.
Right.
Because I'm seeing these women scientists, right? So it's same thing for a curriculum. If you have an inclusive curriculum where you've got people of all races, creeds, sexual orientation, gender identity represented, you're not ignoring anybody's history. Because when you ignore somebody's history, what's the message there, right?
Right, like, you don't matter.
Right. I didn't learn about Alice Paul, for example, until I was in my 30s.
No.
You know? So when you don't. And the other profound experience I had about that kind of seeing things is when I went with Ann Hobbs to the AAUW National Convention in DC.
Yep, I remember when you went to that.
And we went to the National Gallery of Women's Art. And you walk through there and you're like, oh my goodness, you know, all of this art is done by women and it's you know, like, that could be a Rembrandt, you know, I mean, there's from all different periods in human history. And that was a very profound experience. I was interested in art when I was younger, and if I had maybe visited that museum, which didn't exist when I was younger,
right?
It might have allowed me to see myself as an artist.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting close to the end of our journey, and we covered a lot. We didn't cover near what we thought we were going to. But I think, again, AAUW is having a meeting on the 14th, in which Danielle is leading that. We're going to talk about more of that. If this gets out in time, it may not. We had to change the date of our time. However, I want to remind everybody, this whole thing is about tolerance, respect, and caring for one another. And that's just, I'm not a mother, but that would be my mother's message if I were. Anyway, I also want to, I reminded everybody about the 14th. It is in the Beecher Room at 1:30 in the afternoon, if this gets out in time. So And you're welcome. That's always good. The following meeting then is our holiday luncheon. Again, you're more than welcome to share with that. You'd have to find out some information. I'm going to end with our website. That is December 3rd. And so let's see. Our next broadcast is going to be in December, and I'm going to have a person come in and fill in for me, Susan Roughgarden, and she is going to talk about the museums in Placer County. So we're going to take it from this huge, beautiful topic to a little more lightning holiday topic. So that's going to be in December. I am unable to be here because I'm going to get straightened up with back surgery, so that's what we're going for. I hope that you all enjoyed today. We learned a lot. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Phil, for being such a good person. And I'm going to leave us with our website, which I always have to look at. I'm sorry. You can get all this information as well as the YouTube link at auburn-ca.aauw.net. So I think that is the end of our day. I'm going to look right to our Phil and say, hey, how we doing?
Boom.
Boom.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.